All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Share Willow podcast. My name is Ryan Shank, founder of Share Willow. Today, super excited to be here with Jason Worme. Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Nice to meet you.
So I found you on Instagram, and I saw that you had sold a laundromat. Tell me, I think a lot of people right now are really interested in businesses in the trades. Cody Sanchez talks a lot about laundromats and buying kind of cash flowing businesses. Tell me your story. How'd you get into it? Why a laundromat? How was the deal? Tell me everything.
Yeah, sure.
Let's go back. Yeah.
I guess first of all, I think you'll pick up from the accent that I'm not local. So back in around 2022, 2021, my wife and I had decided to put into play a plan that we kind of had for the last couple of decades. So we have 5 young children. And we'd always discussed living in a country abroad for a period of time to give our kids a chance to explore another culture. So in around 2020, during the COVID years, they were pretty tough here in Australia. Everyone spent a lot of time at home. We continued to come back to this conversation. We decided to put that plan in place, and so we looked around the world for places to go and live, and ultimately we decided on the US, and then from the US we decided on New York City. So the next thing that we needed to decide on is what were we going to do once we arrived there. Initially, I was going to do a transfer with the company that I work for and go and study an executive MBA at Wharton Business School. But I'd run my own businesses over since about 2010, on and off, and I really enjoy the working for yourself and controlling your own destiny. So we looked around for options to continue to do that. Initially, we looked at car washes, but the capital expense in New York City to get into the car wash industry was pretty significant. Through online.
One question real quick. So why, obviously like New York City is a great place and all of that, but you're coming from Australia. I don't know if you said it. You're coming from Australia. Why New York City? 5 kids in New York City seems hard. Tell me about the thought process there.
Really, it was my wife's decision. So, through her whole life, I think she sort of had this desire to travel to New York City. Ultimately we decided that was the place we were going to go to, as well as that,
Okay.
from a business perspective, I think there's massive opportunity there. So one of the issues that we'd had owning our businesses in Australia in the past was that population density isn't great in regional parts of Australia, which is where we lived. So some of the businesses that we'd had struggled just simply for the fact that there wasn't a lot of customers in our area. So we had a transport business at one point in time, and one of the issues there was that there's not a whole bunch of people that live in regional Australia. So we figured that wouldn't be a problem in New York City. So that also sort of fed into it.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Okay. Yes. I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so we were sort of thinking, and so the businesses that I'd had always involved me in the early stages, being pretty hands-on in the business, and then as the business grows,
Mhm.
starting to build out a team, and then moving back from that over time. So we looked at similar sort of things where I think the term that is commonly used now is some sweat equity can be put in early on, and so we looked around for industries where that could where we could sort of carry that over. We initially looked at car washes. But as I said, the capital expense is pretty significant, particularly in New York City, in that industry. But during that search, we saw a lot of people who were in that industry commenting about the fact that they either also owned a laundromat or had moved from car washes into the laundromat space. There isn't a significant laundry industry in Australia, particularly self-serve. Obviously, there's small businesses will use the industry, but not in the local laundromat doesn't really exist here in Australia.
Consumers, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So residential consumers don't really use laundromats in
Yep.
Australia because everyone has laundry machines in their houses.
Hmm.
With the exception of say students or things like that, but pretty much everyone will have laundry facilities in their houses, and so the industry doesn't really exist like it does in the US.
Yeah.
So we
So that yeah. You
sorry,
go.
so yeah, so
Sorry.
we went down that rabbit hole and ultimately decided that that was the industry we were going to move into.
Interesting. Okay, I've always been fascinated with laundromats and kind of people going after the laundromat space. So I have a question. Just I guess how you were thinking about it. So you said you were searching. Did you have a search fund? Like, did you have backers who were backing your search, or were you just personally searching?
Personally searching. So we sold some property that we owned here in Australia, put together an amount of cash. And so the
Hmm.
visa that we applied for um, was an E2 visa, meant that I needed to buy a business in the US before I could apply for my visa. So we actually bought the laundromat before I was legally allowed to move to the US, which was is a fair bit of risk involved in that.
Interesting. Okay, I have tons of questions, so I'm just gonna come at
Go for
you,
it.
with all of them. So what were your requirements? Were you like, all right, I want a laundromat with this much top line, this much, SDE or EBITDA, and this much seller financing and an SBA loan? Like, what were your requirements that you're like must haves and then nice to haves?
Yeah, so we were really looking for something on the first acquisition that we could pay for in cash, because being a foreigner, SBA loans and finance is pretty difficult. The
You bought okay
yeah, so
cash.
the
Interesting.
finance situation in the US, if you're a foreigner, it's pretty sort of closed doors, at least for the first 2 years. So we're looking for cash in the first deal. Um, we did ultimately end up getting a little bit of financing, because we ended up buying the property, the building that the laundromat operated out of, as well as the business. So we ended up getting a little bit of financing on the first deal, which we found through a laundry specific lender, who would take into account our Australian-based financial picture. So a little bit of work involved in that. But to answer your question, we're looking for something we can pay cash for, and was providing enough SDE to cover the basics of our life. So my wife was working as well on a
Yeah.
contract back in Australia, but we needed it to fund like a certain amount of our personal budget. So we were able to find something that could do that. It was based in Staten Island.
And oh, awesome. And like just ballpark and not the SDE number, but like ballpark top level revenue. It could be a range, or if you don't feel comfortable sharing it, that's fine. But like, where about were you sort of like, what were you looking for range wise? It could be top line revenue.
Yeah, so top line, we were looking for something. I have to cast my mind back now, but something that was around sort of $750,000.
Okay.
And I guess the other thing too is it needed to be really turnkey. So you see a lot of laundromats for sale that are pretty run down, and require a fair bit of work, sort of after the sale. We needed something to be turnkey. So one of the key considerations for the visa that we applied for is that it employed US citizens and was an actual operating business. And so we needed something that
Hmm.
had employees and actually was profitable, because that sort of formed the basis of our application for our visa, which allowed us to then move to the US. So there were a few requirements there. But yeah, we searched for, I guess it was probably almost a year. It took us from start to finish, and we were able to buy our first location. We closed on it in February of 2023, and then about 6 months later, we actually bought a second location, which was in South Brooklyn.
And are you searching through like the biz buy brokers? Are you or like the marketplaces? Are you going to private brokers? Are you going outbound to laundromats? Like what did your search look like?
Yeah, so our search initially was just through the biz buy sell, business for sale, those types of
Yeah.
listings. But from that, we found brokers that kind of specialized in the laundry industry that were based in New York, and it was through those direct to broker connections that we actually started to see some off market deals that were of higher quality. So typically, what we found is the listed, on those biz buy sell type listings is they'd been through, numerous people that had passed on the opportunity, and there wasn't a lot of quality that was left. It was when we started to make relationships with brokers, and so we just basically did a little bit of outbound to brokers. So once we started to understand who were the key players, we then put together
Yeah.
here's what our situation is, here's the money we have behind us, here's our timeline, here's what we're looking for, here's what we're not looking for, and then we would send that out to multiple brokers regularly to sort of because deals are happening pretty rapidly, particularly in New York
Yeah.
City, and through that we made a connection with someone, understood we were pretty serious. I think they get a lot of people who are interested in the space but aren't potentially serious. But once a few broke,
Everyone's looking at this space from the
it's
sidelines.
it's
Like
fascinating.
it feels so, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Yeah.
yeah. Particularly once you've been in it for a little while, you start to get a lot of interested inquiries, and in particular in New York City, we found a lot of inquiries at the family office, PE,
Yeah.
institutional money starting to sort of come into the space and look around.
And, one of the things that I'm fascinated about is looking at the multiples based on the size of the business. And typically there's a multiple arbitrage. Like from my understanding, kind of the smaller end of the deals, sub, call it a couple $1,000,000, they're trading in the 3 to 5x cash flow multiple. But then if you can roll them up and get to, sizable scale, the multiple flips and it becomes like a 15 to 20x multiple.
Yeah.
Is that your experience? Have you seen that trend?
Yeah, exactly. You pretty much nailed it there. So at the lower end, I think 3 to 6, maybe even a little higher now because there is a bit of heat in the market. But
Competition.
at the time we were
Yeah.
looking, 3 to 5 was pretty standard. And I just heard the other day that I think it was 12 locations had sold for, I think it was like 60 million in New York City. So like I don't know what the multiple was, but it must have been significant. But that was a very polished business, had great branding, great online presence. That was actually
Yeah, yeah.
our plan, was to put together 10 locations and then sell out to some institutional money at a higher multiple. We ultimately
Yep.
didn't get there for family reasons. We decided to move back to Australia, but I still think that is something that can be done in the industry today. It is getting harder because the buy-in price is inflated from even just a couple of years ago. But yeah, it's an interesting space. The other part too, I think that a lot of people maybe misunderstand is it's very there's sort of three businesses within the one business. So you have the self-serve
Mm-hmm.
component, which is your residential customers coming to your location to do their laundry. But you also
Mm-hmm.
have a retail pickup and delivery component to it. And we had a small commercial component, which ultimately was the growth driver for us. And so I think a lot of people coming into the industry don't understand that it's sort of, there's multiple revenue segments within the one business, which,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm becoming so fascinated by this, and we'll speak to your what you're doing now in just a second. But to kind of bridge that and also talk about what you're just talking about, I actually interviewed the owner of a HVAC company earlier today, and she was kind of saying, there's the new sales, the new systems, like the installs, right? So if my heating and air conditioning breaks, about every 10 years they break and you have to buy a new system. It's like 12K, right? That's kind of like the best. That's their big holy grail, right? Um, and for that, it's residential replacement. So you think a homeowner is calling, but then there's this whole other segment where this particular business didn't play in at all, but it's the new home construction. So it's like new home construction. It's more, and then there's also commercial. And then there's also people's rental homes, which is actually different than normal traditional residential replacement from your primary home. And she's actually focused on just the residential replacement from primary homes, but it got me. And she was like, 10 to 15% is commercial and new construction and stuff. But it got me just thinking kind of exactly what you're saying. Like, there's all these different growth drivers. Like, if I want to start a commercial or new home construction side of the business, and I'm sure for laundromats, it's maybe you could partner with. You could go commercial. Like, I know I go to like a lot of sauna places, tons of towels.
yeah.
I'm sure there's places like that, right? So when you bought the business, like, did you have that as a strategy, or did you learn those things over time?
Yeah, so we actually sort of didn't. I was as I just said, we didn't actually really understand that there was these other components to the industry. We just kind of thought it would be self-serve would be
Yeah.
100% of our revenue. We did understand through the search process that people walking in to drop off their laundry, which we would process, would be a component of the business. And then through that, we were smart enough to think about the fact, well, we could go out and pick that up. So we kind of thought that our main growth driver would be residential pickup and delivery. And
Hmm.
so the reason we thought about that was to be able to expand the geographic area that we could service. So typically what you see is, particularly in New York City, like, less than maybe around a half a mile, people would come and do their laundry. Maybe out to a couple of miles, people would bring it to you if you had a good reputation. And so by us
Yeah.
then going and getting it, we thought, well, we could probably go out to, say, the whole island of Staten Island if we're prepared to, drive around and create routes. That was sort of how we thought about growth. Ultimately, what played out was that we couldn't get the CAC low enough to make that because the landscape is so competitive, couldn't actually acquire
Yeah.
customers at a low enough price point to make that actually profitable in the long term. So it had a combination of a high CAC and a relatively low LTV. So we were finding that customers would churn out for maybe just a few cents a pound. And so in that residential space, there's not the main driver is price for a lot of your customers.
Yeah,
So
it's tough.
it took us a long time. We wasted a lot of money on Google Ads, but we sort of realized that the characteristics of a small commercial customer are completely different. So they have a higher order volume, a higher price point. So each order is a bigger value. They order more frequently because, like you said, if you go into the local spa, they've got customers coming every day. So
Hmm.
they would typically say our small commercial customers would typically be between uh, either one pickup per day, uh, three pickups per week, or once a week, depending on the size of their businesses. Whereas your residential
Yeah.
customer, it might be, every 1 week at best, but often it's only every 2 weeks, or maybe even once a month. So the order size
Yeah.
is bigger, the frequency is more often, and the other part is too that they're less price sensitive. So once you create that relationship and they understand that the quality of your service is high, they're not going to leave, for a couple of cents a pound cheaper, because that they understand that you're providing good quality service. And look, at the end of the day, you're just, one line item on their P&L, one expense line item.
Hmm.
They don't want to, they don't want to muck that up over what might ultimately be, just a few dollars a week. So yeah,
Yeah.
once we understood that, then that became like the big growth driver for us. We were able to change our marketing strategy completely. So we ended up actually going to a cold email, outbound cold email sequence.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we stopped Google Ads altogether. And yeah, we really saw the revenue tick up, and that was the thing that was the real changer for us.
So when did you know it was a good time to start getting the business and putting it up for sale? Like, did you purposely try to drive growth and revenue, and then you're like, all right, now that we see the slope of growth happening, let's put it up for sale. We can show the growth trajectory and know that it's a good time. Because I assume since you weren't doing the roll up strategy where there's going to be an arbitrage on the multiple, you're basically saying, hey, we're going to get the same multiple, but we just need to increase cash flow.
Yep.
So what did it look like timing wise when you were doing that? And, how did you think about, like, all right, timing for the sale?
Yeah, so because we were on an E2 visa, there was always this thing in the back of my mind that at some point in time, this can potentially end for a variety of reasons. We might decide we don't like it anymore. My visa might not be renewed. There was multiple reasons why we potentially needed to be prepared to sell. And so from the day that we purchased, we were planning for the sale. So even before that, if I'm honest with you, so always I was preparing to make sure that we had a solid set of financials, which is actually really rare in this industry. Most
Uh,
financials are a bit of
yeah.
a mess in this. You had a question?
Sorry. I'm like yeah. I would assume laundromats, by the way, this is what I wanted to say earlier, just while going to the financials, like, aren't they like traditionally like not keeping their books straight? Like, didn't people like launder money through laundromats and, like, you know what I mean? Like, weren't those kind of the like sketchy businesses? Like,
I believe
did you
so.
see that when you were looking? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Did you see that when you were looking at the space? Like, were you like, these books are terrible?
Yeah. So almost 9 out of 10 locations we would look at, the books were terrible for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
I think less so that we're trying to launder money, more so that the owner, typical laundromat owner, maybe doesn't have the financial acumen to be able to manage a good set of books. And so
Yeah.
we wanted to make sure that if we decided to sell or we needed to sell, that we had a good set of books, that we had an online presence. So we worked on our digital presence. We created a website that was pretty comprehensive early on. And then we
Mhm.
drove systems through the business. So we used to use a tool called Notion to document the internal operations for the business, either through checklists or videos of how we might do certain steps. Every single commercial customer had a video of how their laundry should be folded. The drivers had videos of where the entrance points were to the stores and that sorts of things. So I think those types of things are the things that, in my mind, those were the types of things that would take us from a 3 or 5 times multiple to, 8 to 10 potentially. And ultimately, yeah, we did see an increase in multiple, and I do believe is because of those types of things we put in place.
All right, I love that, and I want to clip this because I think that is super important. So you had a Notion doc, and one of the things that just stuck out to me is you would actually take videos of certain customers' clothes or their laundry and say, this is how you fold it specifically, so that when you're training future employees,
Yeah.
you have all the documentation in one place that is the source of truth. And that enables you to sort of scale beyond just you who might know the customer. Hey, I know they like their t-shirts folded this way or their towels rolled. And that enables you to really deliver a customer experience and delight the customer better than if it was just you're able to scale yourself.
Yeah, it allowed us to just continue to repeat the same process over and over
Hmm.
again. So whenever we onboard a new commercial customer, I would do the first visit. We would just go through like a little checklist that we had of things that we understood were important to most customers. And as part of that, we would get them to show us how they would like their laundry prepared to be returned back to them. And so we just, take out your iPhone, take a video of that while they're doing
Yep.
it. You can tune it
Yep.
up later if you need to for training your staff. But as a bare minimum, we would get that
Yeah.
first video. And then, what happens over time is that the phone stops ringing from your staff to say, hey, how do we do this? Because they know that they can go to the iPad that's in the office, watch the video again, and check any of the key points for that customer, as well as the driver. Hey, how do we? If the driver's sick and doesn't normally do that route, how do I find this location? Sometimes that can be difficult in New York City. So if you've got a video of hey, you
Yeah.
go to the loading dock and it's this door on the left, then
Yeah.
that takes away another phone call and allows staff to replace others, and you don't have to do onerous training. It's all there documented in videos.
Yeah, that's incredible. Okay, so the playbook with laundromats, you can so I think I heard you either buy a laundromat that's mainly residential, add a commercial line to it. That's where the big money is anyway,
Yeah,
the larger ticket volume, increase order size, and then you're going to sell for probably around the same multiple if you're just kind of increasing top line, increasing cash flow. Or the playbook is to roll them up and then sort of get the multiple on the on the arbitrage, because you're going to go from a sub-$1 million cash flow business to
multiple.
5 or $10 million cash flow
Yeah.
business. You're going to go from 5x to 15x multiple. So you can either roll them up, or you can take one business, add additional lines, increase the cash flow that way. And it sounds like the best way to add additional lines is to add commercial to the business. Is
Yeah,
that
that's
fair?
fair. Yeah, we did mention dry cleaning, but that added an additional 15% to our top line as well, and we outsourced 100% of that work. So it allowed us to take more revenue per labor hour that we had in the business, and
Mm-hmm.
the margins on dry cleaning were pretty high. So it wasn't a significant part of our business, But it was another one of these things that allowed us to add some top line. We didn't have to increase our labor. There was no additional overhead. There's a tiny little bit of training, but again, we documented that. So it was another sort of like, so I think, like the thing that I noticed when I came in the industry is that people weren't really thinking about the space in terms of like, how would I run a business? It was more
Yeah.
to, I think a lot of people there think about it as a job. So you want to think about like, how can I systemize it? How can I grow revenue? How can I grow into different categories? How do I make my operations more efficient and therefore more profitable? Like marketing is not really sort of something that you associate typically with a laundromat, but we developed a
Yeah.
pretty efficient system where we were able to go and acquire new businesses very affordably, and the LTV, we're seeing we've had customers that were six figures in a year of annual spend that we'd acquired for
Wow.
a couple of $100. So the numbers there, you don't even have to do the numbers, right? You know that you're profitable.
We're good. We're good.
That's
We're
right.
good.
Yeah.
Um, okay, super interesting. So, let's talk about the sale of that business, and then we can kind of fast forward to what's happening now. So, I know you bought another company. When you were selling, did you roll them together and kind of sell them as a package deal, or was it one at a
Yeah,
time?
no, we ran them as the same business, and common website, same business, same branding. They were sold as a package to one customer, to one buyer. Yeah.
Got it. And how did that process look? Did you go to a broker and say, "Hey, I want to sell this company," and did you do all that? Did you get a third party valuation? Did you have like what did the selling process look
Yeah,
like?
sure. So, nothing like that. So, so through the journey of buying, I'd sort of come to realize that whilst the brokers gave us deal flow, they ultimately didn't add a lot of value to the whole process. And so through my journey in the industry, I tried to keep involved in things like the Coin Laundry Association, different industry groups, network as much as I could, particularly in New York City. And so
Yep.
we built up what I thought was maybe a reasonable list of people who might be interested in potentially acquiring us, as well as that there was some interest from like institutional money, family offices,
Hmm.
and things like that. So we prepared I think it was about a 10-page document. I guess you would call it like a information memorandum of why
Yeah.
why our business was unique, and why, and to justify the sale price that we were looking for. So we put that together. We reached out to a bunch of our connections, and it was around Thanksgiving time, and around that time, just out of the blue, someone that we knew in the industry that we hadn't reached out to said, "Hey, do you know anyone who's selling any laundromats?" He was already in the industry. He knew that I was in the industry, and I said, "Well, hey, let me send you this." And it took a little while, took a little longer than I thought, but I think it was around 6 months from that phone call to when
Hmm.
we actually closed with him. So we closed in
And
April of this
did
year.
oh wow,
Yeah,
whoa, very
yeah,
recently.
very
Okay,
recently. Yeah,
congrats first of all. Did they use financing?
we gave them a little bit of financing. So yeah,
Seller
yeah, seller
financing,
financing. Yeah,
but no SBA loan from them.
I don't believe so. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you, but yeah, yeah,
Okay. Um. Okay. Yeah. That's actually really interesting. Yeah. I mean, they say right, like if a deal gets to the market from a broker, it's probably been passed on
yeah,
by everyone off market. So that's probably in the best case. The other thing, at Share Willow, we work with tons of companies in the trades. Everyone wants to buy a company. I was just thinking in my head, I was like, it's probably so easy to find buyers right now. The hard part is trying to find the
yeah.
sellers. I'll tell you that. That's actually everyone's searching. Everyone's searching for people, or trying to get people to sell. So yeah, I can imagine if you wanted to sell, the buying appetite is certainly there.
Yeah, I mean, look, the cost too. We saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on broker fees, just by
Yeah.
doing it ourselves. And I think I did a better
And
job
and
of
so
it.
what?
Yeah,
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 yeah. I would assume as long as you have a good lawyer who can do
yeah,
all the contracts
yeah.
and stuff, that I feel like that's what you
Yeah,
need,
yeah,
right?
we had a good lawyer. We were well represented there, but no one knew my business as well as I did. So I feel as though that in the sales process, I was the best person to represent ourselves.
It almost reminds me, I hate to say this, uh, recruiters and like real estate agents, it's like recruiters, like most of them, I mean, they're just really going outbound. I mean, sure, they're taking some of the heavy lifting for like, but it's like if you're a recruiter and you place a software engineer, you get 25% of their
Yeah,
salary. You know what I mean? So if it's a 300K software engineer, that's a pretty expensive recruiter fee
yeah,
for like, for what? Just, kind of doing
opening the
some
door.
outbound
Yeah,
sequence. Yeah, or same thing with real estate agents.
yeah,
It's like, dude, I'm doing most of the work on Zillow or StreetEasy. So it sounds like maybe similar with brokers now. And I know there's a lot of platforms that are trying to replace them, similar to how Zillow's trying to replace a lot of real estate
yeah.
agents. Um, okay, so you closed in April, uh, and that's in New York. So you're in New York. You closed, 5 kids, wife. Now what?
Well, the wife and kids they moved back to Australia in January. Our school year starts in late January in Australia. So the
Okay.
wife and kids moved back a few months earlier to get the kids into our full school year here. I stayed in New York City to finish the closing of the sale. Moved back in mid-April, and we started searching straight away. In fact, I'd started sort of around the start of the year looking into what options we had. So we live in a small town called Bendigo, which is about an hour and a half north of Melbourne, which is one of the
Mm-hmm.
state capitals in the southeast of Australia. So we live in a town of about 150,000 people. So there's not like a huge population.
Mm-hmm.
The opportunities for businesses for sale in this area are pretty limited, and they range from the local pizza store through to potentially some significant businesses. And we were looking at the significant business end of that scale, and so that we understood the numbers were going to be pretty limited in terms of opportunities that we could find. Uh, we,
So, well, one question real quick. So your initial purchase was a 750K top line revenue business. You did all that. You got the sale now. Now you're going back to Australia. What's the scale of businesses that you're looking at now, kind of like revenue
yeah,
wise?
so we ultimately sold for multiple millions in the US. And I don't want to give a number because we signed an NDA with the seller, but I think I can safely say we sold for multiple millions. We
But what about, are you able to say a top line revenue range?
I'd prefer not to, if that's okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure, sure,
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Sure, sure,
yeah.
sure. My question was more of like the Australia search.
Yeah, so
Like
so just
what size?
to
Yeah.
give you an idea, so we had some money behind us. We took some money over. We bought more money back. We were looking for businesses that would be at least $1 million in EBITDA, which would put us potentially in the range, depending on what the type of business was, potentially in the range of like 10 to 20 million in top
Wow.
line sales.
Oh
So a
wow,
pretty
okay.
significant jump. But we also have an exchange rate advantage. So as we took the money back from the US to Australia, our money multiplied by about 1.5. So we had more cash
Yeah.
behind us for this business than we did when we went to the US, because it worked the other way. When we went to the US, right, we got less. But yeah, so yeah, we're looking for something in that range. We just put an offer in over the weekend, and we're hoping to hear back this week on a local opportunity. So um, yeah.
Congrats. Um, that's incredible. And remind me of the data when you first bought the laundromat, the 750K top line laundromat in the US when you moved the wife and kids over. What year was that? I'm trying to get the
2023,
timelines.
early 2023.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, so it was a relatively quick flip.
Yeah, a couple of years. Yeah. 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 I ultimately
Yeah,
thought
two
we'd be
two
there
years.
longer, but with 5 kids, if they weren't enjoying it, then we sort of couldn't stay. So
Yeah.
everyone enjoyed it, but we ultimately decided that Australia was home. And so after a couple of years,
Hmm.
we decided to move back to Australia.
And how is it now? Buying a business at sub $1 million revenue is way different than buying a $10 million revenue business. That's a real business with a real team and leadership,
Yeah.
managers. Um, you know, how are you thinking about it now? Are you excited? Obviously you're growing and you're leveling up. You know, are you excited to sort of like get back into the trenches again? So you've been out of it. You were selling it for 6 months. You moved back.
Yeah.
Like where are you at in your headspace wise?
Yeah, I'm like a caged animal. I can't wait to be let out and get back into it again. I think anyone who's been an entrepreneur, that they would understand
Yeah.
exactly what I'm talking about. I've had, like a long time now where kind of not been
Mhm.
doing a lot, and really excited to be, working with a bigger team. We had about 15 staff across our two locations in New York, so it is like a level up from where we were. I have in jobs I've had in the past, I've managed teams up to 400. So I think I've got the skill.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I think I've got the skills to tackle it. Obviously it's a bit different when it's your own money, but I'm super excited. I see a lot of opportunity in the space that we're moving into. I think they've got a great team in place. They clearly know what they're doing. They've grown their business to be a significant player in regional Australia, and so yeah, really really excited about the next phase.
And how are you thinking about it this time? So, when you went to the laundromat, you were originally thinking you were going to do a roll up of a bunch of different ones and sort of kind of grow it like
Yeah.
that. Ended up sort of staying at one location, but still significantly growing it, making significant money, especially in just a couple years, which is incredible. Um, Now you're kind of playing big time, playing in the big leagues. Not that you weren't, but like it's
Yeah.
a level
Yeah.
up.
It's
How
definitely.
are you thinking about it? What's the plan?
Yeah, so the plan I think is 100 million. I think we can grow this business to 100 million, keeping
Let's
in
go.
regional Australia. It's going to be a journey. There's no doubt about that. But that's the play. I think, and it's interesting. We're on the Share Willow podcast here. As I get older, the more I think about is like the legacy that I leave behind. And I really want to try and make sure that in this next business that we can bring the staff along on the journey. So I'm not exactly sure how we
Mhm.
do that yet, but profit sharing, incentives, like how can I do as much as possible to have the people that are part of the team also win if I can win. And as well as my family, we want to make sure that, we get ourselves in a great space. But, we're kind of close to being
Yep.
there now. And so like the next sort of step for my wife and I is how do we help our local community and the people that live within it and the people that are part of our team, level up their lives. So yeah, it's something I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important. I also think these days it might be table stakes. Because if you don't have the people, I just got off another call or interview with a HVAC company, and she doesn't have the people to do all the jobs. And I asked her, I was like, how much money do you think you're leaving on the table per year just because you don't have the availability or the capacity? And she said it's millions,
Mm,
right? And she's in a small town in Maryland. But you got to have the people. I don't know if in Australia it's the similar issue, but in the United States, like there is such a shortage of labor of people going into the trades and the technicians, and you got to incentivize them and motivate them, keep one, retain them, but then really keep them around to do what's in the best interest for the customer, which I think then becomes in the best interest for the
yeah,
company. Um, yeah. So I know we're not going to talk specifics. So this is not a laundromat. It's more like in the trades
correct. Yeah.
area. You said. Um, do you think you're going to expand service area? Do you think, like I'm always interested in, how do you acquire market share? Because especially in the United States, a lot of PE is coming into the trades and they're kind of buying up market share. They're investing a lot up front in that heavy sort of customer acquisition cost to acquire the customers to then make it back over time. Like, are you thinking, hey, we're gonna acquire market share in this area? Are you thinking, hey, we're gonna have to spread out? Like, how are you thinking about that growth? Because to go from 10 to 100 is not an easy
No,
task.
no, no, not at all. So one of the things that really excites me about this business is that there's clear evidence of I guess, the system that they've developed around there. I think you had a guy on your podcast recently who spoke about his vans generating $1 million a year, and he thinks about that as
Yeah,
as
Craig.
yeah as his growth unit of measure. So this is a little bit different. These guys have stores in regional areas as their growth unit of measure. And you can see that they've obviously been able to sort of systemize that to a level, and that is, I guess, like a significant growth driver for them. And so, what I think about is like once we get a little bit further through this buying process, I'll understand that fully, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be you take that, you take the store, you apply it to the next regional town and the next regional town and the next regional town. So here in Australia,
Mhm.
there's already some significant players in the industry that we're looking at in the capital cities. And so our plan is to stay outside of those capital cities and dominate the regional areas.
I love it. I love it. God, I was talking to someone that was doing something again in the United States somewhere, but they're like, we're gonna play in second tier.
Yeah,
Let the big boys play in the
yeah,
first tier. We're gonna go in the Tulsa,
yeah.
Oklahomas, Nashville, sort of like not those tier one, not New York, Miami, not the tier ones, but it's like boom, we're gonna hit all these other cities, and the long tail of those cities is probably more.
Well, if you're thinking from a
And
trades
hope
business, like that's where a lot of the housing growth is, and the capital cities are already dense, right? And so this is a trades-based business. Where's the growth happening? It's happening outside of the capital cities in the regions, and so I think the two sort of work together pretty well.
What's also interesting, especially so I think the dynamics outside of the capital cities are also better for the trades because it's more homeowners that like are going to call you like versus like in New York, like everyone rents, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? So like the building kind of calls their maintenance
yeah,
people. It's not like you calling the HVAC or the plumbing or the flooring contractor, the window person, right? It's more it's more like deals like that. I don't really know like how it happens exactly to be honest. But yeah, the thing that I was going to say, hopefully, by the way, maybe you get some value from the Share Willow podcast. I'm trying to extract little nuggets from people here and there, like some things that I've learned just to spitball. Like some of these guys, they'll bring in someone with a low cost offer, like, hey, here's a free smart thermometer or a discounted
yeah. That
smart
guy
thermometer, and
knows
then
what he's
once they
doing
get,
with the beard.
dude, that guy,
Yeah,
yeah, that guy's a
yeah.
legend. Yeah, I mean, similar. They're 10 million. He wants to grow to 100 million. Actually, they're very similar. They're 10 million. They're in Orlando and Tampa, and they're going to go to Jacksonville. So just one other city. Not these are also tier 2 cities, right? Going to go to 100 million. He knows his funnel inside and out. I learned a lot from him actually.
He's smart guy.
Um, yeah, he's really like funnel focused. Yeah, bringing them in through the offer. I thought the offer is interesting. I talked to someone today. So if she schedules someone like 2 weeks out, so one, the algorithms I guess everywhere, the algorithms can almost work against you. So if a customer has something breaks and they schedule you, but you can't come to them for a week or two, their
Yeah,
feed, they're probably going to get ads for your
yeah,
competitors because the algorithms are so good now, right? But what she is doing is if you sign a deal to like get it fixed with her company, she'll give you a window unit, or in the winter, she'll give you a space heater. So I think a lot of customers are like outcome focused. So it's like, look, I can't send a guy. I don't have anyone available. I'm going to get you a window unit. Your house will be cool. You're not going to be heating. You're not going to be, and so you're going to be cool, and then we'll come in a
that's
week or
smart.
so. And then that sort of, yeah,
Yeah,
it's so smart.
yeah,
I was like, oh my God, that's so
yeah,
smart. So like that's what I'm trying to do with this podcast is like let me get nuggets from all these other successful companies all doing, 10 to 100 million, and how can we share that knowledge for people that want to build their businesses, right?
yeah.
And I think like there's a lot of just learnings that are happening
Yeah,
hopefully.
no, it's been fantastic. I've really loved your content. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you. Cool. Well, I think this is a great place. So, hopefully that transaction goes through. Good luck. And yeah, let's do a follow-up episode. You come back on, we actually can talk about the
That'd be
company
great.
and like, some things that you're currently doing and then some things that you're going to do. But I think so many people are interested in the laundromat space. Again, I don't know if it got just popularized through social media. And again, I'm sure you follow Cody Sanchez.
Yeah,
She talks about it. Um, but I also think from basically what you just said, it's not as hands off. So many people are
it's a
passive.
lot of
Oh, this
work.
passive cash flow. It is not.
No,
There's no passive
no.
about it. So anyway, Jason Worm, thank you so much for coming on the Share Will podcast. I'm super grateful to chat with you. I learned a lot, and yeah, I'm excited for you to come back on for part 2 once you've closed the
You're welcome,
business.
man. Let's stay in touch. It's great to talk.
All right, awesome.